Let's talk about if autism would be a disability in a world built for us. Hey folks, welcome to the Autistic Adoptee channel. As the channel name suggests, I am both autistic and I am an adoptee. So one of my favorite neurodivergent content creators, Sensory Stories by Nicole, recently made a post in which they stated that even in a world built for autistic people, they would still be disabled because their autistic brain wiring would still cause them anxiety due to the mere presence of other humans. And that even without other humans, their brain would still be triggered and activated because of that autistic brain wiring. I'm going to scroll that post on the screen now, and you can pause it if it's scrolling by too quickly for you to read it. Okay. I understand that Sensory Stories by Nicole is far more qualified and educated about autism than I ever will be. And I need to be careful about how I phrase this, about how I phrase things in this episode, because I never want to tell other people what they think or feel or why they think or feel a certain way. I absolutely believe them about how they feel about their autistic brain and the way it is wired. I absolutely believe them about how they feel about autism being a disability, regardless of the social constructs surrounding us. And I want to reiterate here how much I respect and admire Sensory Stories by Nicole and their activism, their advocacy, their compassion, and their hard work. I know that the little bit that I do is hard work, and I know they are putting in far more effort than that. They are the type of content creator that I know I am not, and that I would very much like to be. For this episode, my first impulse here was to disagree. When I was first writing the outline for this episode, my first impulse was to disagree and assert that autism is only a disability in the context of our societal constructs, our societal constraints. But the more I thought about their post, the more my thinking shifted. And I've landed in a place of qualified agreement with Sensory Stories by Nicole on this topic. So let's begin with an explanation of my initial thinking, and then I'll explain where my thinking is now. The place that I started from is that autism for me, and I can only speak for me, is a difference more than it is a disability. That difference manifests as a disability for me because I have to navigate and live in a world that's not built for autistic people, and I am an autistic person. The holistic world that we live in values social relationships in ways that autistic folks tend not to. The social relationships that autistic people do value tend to be fewer, deeper, and more intense than most allistic people. Allistic people tend to value fitting in, getting along, being part of a group more than autistic people do. The allistic world operates within social orders and social structures like hierarchies that autistic people tend not to see nor care about. Allistic communication operates within social scripts, social context, and conventions that autistic people tend to be blind to or don't see the value in. Autistic communication is often direct and factual, which violates many of the allistic social norms. The allistic world is intentionally filled with sensory noise, and autistic people are often overwhelmed by that noise, by all of the scents, sounds, brightness, vibrations, textures, frenetic energy that is the allistic world, and so on. I mean, basically, this world was not built for us. So these differences for me manifest as disabilities because of how they limit or inhibit me from functioning in the world around me. Those of us who can, like me, force ourselves to function in this world, but we do so at great emotional, mental, and physical cost to ourselves. Because of this thinking, I have spent my time and energy advocating for things like universal design that increases accessibility for everyone, or at least as many people as is possible. Advocating for things like greater acceptance, understanding, and accommodation of differences, rather than the one-size-fits-all mold that the holistic world tends towards. I advocate for things like an end of the capitalistic mindset that our only value as a person, holistic and autistic alike, is productivity, right? My thinking was that in a world designed for us, designed for autistic people, surely we'd be different, and we'd just simply be different and not disabled, right? And if we were merely different, but accepted and accommodated for that difference, we wouldn't carry the trauma of the constant social anxiety, the trauma of the endless rejections and reminders that we are different and not in a good way. we wouldn't carry the trauma of constantly being told that we are rude, wrong, too sensitive, too argumentative, too quiet, too selfish, too every other judgment that autistic people receive on the daily, right? My assertion was that the crippling anxiety, the constant overthinking, the chronic second guessing, the ruminating, the meltdowns, the shutdowns, the burnout, so much of that is actually driven by trauma. My belief was that so much of autism's manifestation as a disability is due to post-traumatic stress responses, or as the DSM puts it, post-traumatic stress disorder. I prefer to think of them as responses, because if you put anybody in those types under those types of stressors, they are going to respond to that stress. So it's not a disorder. It's actually just a stressor, a response to stressors. A post-traumatic stress response, PTSR, if you will. So, tangent aside, if you remove the traumatic stressors, you would also be removing the responses that stem from those stressors. And to be clear, I still believe this. I still strongly believe that removing the traumatic stressors is the right thing to do. And this is the way to make things better for everyone, Autistic and Autistic alike. But I'm a little more tempered in what I believe the impact, the result that such a perfectly designed world, if possible, would have for autistic people like me specifically. Which brings me to my qualified agreement with Sensory Stories by Nicole's post. Keep in mind that I would never tell another person how to think about their condition, disability, difference, or however they choose to identify their diagnosis, whether that's a clinical diagnosis or a self-diagnosis. So everything that I have to say from here on out is in reference to how I feel about my autism. Okay. So I agree that in a world with perfect universal design that accommodates everyone, if such a thing is possible, I absolutely still would be disabled. I would still experience the crippling anxiety that comes when other people are near me. Even if there were no other people, the world itself, with all of its sound, sense, and other sensory chaos, would still trigger anxiety and mental distress for me. The qualification is that I would still be disabled because the post-traumatic stress responses are already a part of my psyche. They are already a part of me. I was actually diagnosed with PTSD, and like I said, I prefer PTSR, post-traumatic stress response. I was diagnosed with PTSR long before I ever learned or even learned that I was autistic, let alone knew anything about autism itself, right? Many of those scars, those trauma responses, are because I've been navigating the holistic world as an autistic person. And because I already carry those scars from trying to navigate the holistic world for 53 years, I would still find a world perfectly designed for autistic people to be triggering and activating. those scars are already present in my brain, in my psyche, in my stress responses. Had I instead spent my 53 years in a world that was accepting and accommodating of my differences, I don't think that being autistic would still be a disability for me. I might, however, have other disabilities like my learning differences. I'm dyscalculic, I'm dyslexic, and dysgraphic. And this is the same as allistic people who live in an allistic world, and yet they still have disabilities. So just like an allistic person in our current allistic world who grows up in a dysfunctional family, I would still have post-traumatic stress responses because a lot of that trauma that I'm responding to was inflicted by my alcoholic and abusive adoptive father. So yes, autism would still be a disability for me if the world were suddenly perfectly designed for autistic people. But that is because I bear the scars of living in an allistic world for 53 years. And the other disabilities that I carry outside of autism and the other traumatic experiences that I carry outside of autism, they too would also still exist. So as I've said, I've landed in a place of qualified agreement with the post from Sensory Stories by Nicole. And regardless of how I qualify my agreement, I still insist that classifying autism as a disability is essential because in this world, it absolutely manifests as a disability for so many of us. And that spotlight, that advocacy is essential. In the end, whether trauma responses or autism itself, it is what is disabling. It is disabling. Okay, to wrap things up, where do you stand on this topic? I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Also, I'm linking Sensory Stories by Nicole's channel, website, and other socials below. So definitely go check out their content and do the like, subscribe, and all the things, all the other things for them. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question down below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, keep living your best life and know that you deserve it.